Every individual who walks upon this earth faces an inner conflict. It isn't always visible to others' eyes and isn't always spoken aloud, but it exists nonetheless. It is the war within, the struggle between who we are and who we're called to become. It's the battle against forces of darkness that whisper falsehoods into our hearts, telling us we're insufficient, that transformation is impossible, that we're beyond redemption. It's the burden of wrongdoing, the allurements that attempt to pull us down, and the weights we carry from our journey. Some contend with rage, a flame that burns inside them, consuming their tranquility and leaving destruction in their relationships. Others struggle with anxiety, fear of disappointment, fear of exclusion, fear of uncertainty, paralyzing them and preventing them from moving forward in trust. There are those trapped in the relentless grip of dependency, chains that appear unbreakable, holding them captive in behaviors they desperately wish to abandon. And many battle the voice of self-condemnation, telling them they're undeserving of affection, of clemency, of meaning. But perhaps the greatest deception of all is the belief that we struggle in isolation. The adversary, the deceiver, would have you believe your struggle is unique, that no one else wrestles with the thoughts and temptations troubling you. He seeks to isolate you, to make you feel forsaken in life's battles. There comes a moment when we recognize that our own strength proves insufficient. We attempt to resist temptation, but it continually returns. We try to overcome fear, but it lingers in the recesses of our minds. We pledge to ourselves that we'll improve, become better, transform for the good, but repeatedly, we fall short. Regardless of our perceived strength, forces greater than ourselves operate in this world, forces that attempt to draw us away from the light and deeper into shadows. Yet hope remains. There exists a power beyond us, a strength that never falters, a presence that never forsakes. When we invoke the divine, we no longer battle alone. He enters the conflict, and his power becomes our power. He carries the burdens we cannot bear, breaks the chains we cannot break, and grants us the victory we could never achieve independently. Since time immemorial, humanity has attempted to live by its own wisdom, its own strength, its own capability. But repeatedly, history has demonstrated the limitations of human effort. Empires and conquerors have risen and fallen. Philosophers have sought understanding, yet even the greatest intellects haven't unraveled the mysteries of the soul. Wealth and influence have come and gone, but the fundamental needs of the human heart remain unchanged. We weren't designed to journey alone. We weren't created to rely exclusively on our own strength. We were fashioned for relationship with the one who called the cosmos into being, the one who sustains all creation, the one who never fails. Consider the tempest-tossed ocean, waves crashing upon the shore, winds howling through the night. A vessel caught in such turbulence has no ability to calm the raging waters. It cannot command the winds to cease or the skies to clear. But if that vessel has an anchor, something secure, something immovable, it can maintain position. It may be battered, but will not be lost. Similarly, our souls require an anchor. We need something beyond ourselves, something that remains constant amid life's storms. That anchor is found in the divine alone. When we attempt to confront our demons through our own strength, we grow weary, discouraged, beginning to believe that triumph is impossible. But when we call upon the divine, he provides strength we lack. He lifts us when we stumble. He reminds us that we're not defined by our past, our failures, or our struggles, but by his love and his purpose for us. Some may ask, why do I need the divine? Cannot I simply depend on my own determination? To which I ask, how many times have you tried? How many times have you resolved to change only to find yourself reverting to identical patterns? How many nights have you wrestled with the same fears, same regrets, same burdens, yearning for relief that never materializes? The human heart yearns for something greater. We weren't designed to carry life's weight upon our own shoulders. We were meant to walk in divine presence, to draw our strength from above, to surrender our battles to the one who has already won the war. When we call upon him, he doesn't turn away. He doesn't withhold his power. He extends mercy and grace, offering to take our burdens, to fight for us, to guide us into victory we could never achieve alone. Consider the soldier who enters battle unarmed. No shield, no weapon, no protection, only their determination. They might fight with all their might, but remain vulnerable, exposed, and ultimately overwhelmed. But the warrior who advances into conflict fully equipped, with a powerful ally at their side, isn't easily defeated. Their strength isn't merely their own, it's the strength of the one fighting for them. So it is with us. When we try to conquer our demons alone, we resemble the unarmed warrior. We might fight with everything we possess, but the forces against us prove too formidable. We need armor, protection, the one who battles on our behalf. We must invoke him, trust him, and allow his strength to become our strength. Divine One, many stand at the crossroads, hesitating, wondering if they should submit to this higher power. They fear relinquishing control, fear what surrender entails. But the truth remains. Surrender isn't weakness. It's the greatest demonstration of strength. It's the moment when we cease relying on ourselves and begin relying on the one who has never failed. It's the moment when we exchange our burdens for his peace, our struggles for his power, our fears for his unwavering presence. No matter how heavy the burden, no matter how fierce the battle, there is one who is greater. He stands prepared to fight for you, to lift you, to lead you to victory. All you must do is call upon his name. Fear stands among the most potent forces in existence. It grips the heart, clouds the mind, and immobilizes the soul. It's a whisper in darkness saying, "You're not strong enough, not good enough, destined to fail." It emerges during times of uncertainty, nurturing doubt and draining hope. Fear can make the strongest individual feel powerless and the bravest person hesitate. It can prevent you from embracing the life you were meant to live, from pursuing the purpose set before you, and from trusting sacred promises. Fear doesn't originate from the divine. It isn't his design. From the beginning, fear has been the enemy's weapon, used to prevent people from walking in complete faith. Adam and Eve concealed themselves when fear took hold. The Israelites hesitated at the promised land's edge because fear convinced them they couldn't prevail in the impending battle. Peter walked on water until fear overtook him, and he began sinking. Fear has always been a thief, stealing peace, stealing confidence, stealing joy. But something greater than fear exists: faith. Faith is fear's antidote. It's the light dispelling darkness, the foundation standing firm when everything else crumbles. Faith doesn't mean fear never approaches, but it means fear doesn't triumph. Faith declares, "Though I cannot see the path, I trust the one who does." Faith proclaims, "Even amidst the tempest, I will stand because my divine guide surpasses the wind and waves." Faith doesn't ignore life's difficulties, but refuses to let fear dictate the future. Two voices speak in every moment of uncertainty, one of fear, one of faith. Fear will always highlight the obstacles, the giants in the land, the approaching storm. It will magnify your weaknesses, your failures, your doubts. But faith will remind you of something greater. It will direct you to the divine who has never failed, to the one who divided the sea, who silenced the lions, who walked through fire with his people. Faith doesn't rest in your capability, but in divine power. Consider a child learning to walk. Initially, there's hesitation, trembling steps, uncertainty. But the child doesn't walk alone. A father stands nearby, arms extended, ready to catch, ready to guide. The child may stumble, but the father doesn't abandon. He doesn't allow the child to fall beyond recovery. Similarly, faith trusts in divine presence. It knows that even when the path seems uncertain, even when steps feel unsteady, the Father remains present. Fear thrives on uncertainty. It demands answers, assurance, control. But faith rests in trust. It doesn't need to see every step ahead because it knows the one who leads. Abraham departed from his homeland, not knowing where the divine would lead him, but believing the one who called him was faithful. David stood before a giant, not because he possessed the strength to prevail, but because he believed victory was already divinely granted. The disciples abandoned their nets, their livelihoods, their security because they had faith in the one who called them. Fear will always attempt to halt you before you begin. It will claim you're unprepared, unqualified, insufficient. But faith says, if the divine supports me, who can oppose me? Faith reminds you it's not about your strength, but His. Not about your ability, but His power working through you. The world overflows with fear. People fear the future, fear failure, fear loss, fear the unknown. But those walking in faith move differently. They aren't shaken by life's storms because their foundation remains immovable. They aren't consumed by worry because they trust in divine provision. They don't live hesitantly because they believe in the one who goes before them. Fear wants you to live cautiously. It wants you to withdraw, to remain where it's secure, to never take the faithful step leading to greater purpose. But faith calls you higher. It calls you to trust, to step forward, to believe in the impossible. Faith doesn't promise absence of trials, challenges, or difficulties, but it promises you won't traverse them alone. There will be moments when fear knocks at your heart's door. It will appear in many forms: doubt, anxiety, worry, hesitation. But in that moment, you must decide which voice you'll heed. Will you listen to fear, telling you to remain static, to retreat, to surrender? Or will you listen to faith, calling you to trust, to advance, to believe the divine surpasses any challenge you face? Faith over fear represents a choice, one requiring daily renewal. It isn't a single decision, but continuous surrender. It means choosing to believe divine promises, even amid uncertain circumstances. It means choosing to trust divine goodness, even when the road ahead appears unclear. It means choosing to step forward in obedience, even when fear urges retreat. Fear may knock, but faith need not open the door. Faith stands resolute. Faith endures. Faith progresses. Fear may roar, but faith knows the battle is already won. Faith doesn't waver because it's built upon unshakable rock. Faith over fear isn't about denying life's difficulties. It's about standing firm in the truth that regardless of what comes, the divine remains in control. No narrative is so broken it cannot be rewritten. No past is so stained it cannot be cleansed. No life is so lost it cannot be found. Redemption isn't merely a word. It's the essence of divine love. The promise that regardless of how far we've fallen, no matter how deep the pit appears, a way back exists. It's the assurance that failure isn't final, that wrongdoing doesn't have the last word, and that grace always proves greater. Since time began, humanity has struggled with transgressions. It began in the garden when the first humans chose their path over the divines. It continued throughout history, generation after generation, men and women pursuing worldly things, turning from their Creator. But even in rebellion, even in humanity's darkest moments of failure, the divine plan of redemption was already active. Redemption means to be reclaimed, to be restored to honorable position, to be made complete again. It isn't something we earn, not something we achieve through our strength or virtuous deeds. It's a gift freely given, purchased not with precious metals but with sacred blood. It's the power transforming brokenness into wholeness, transforming lostness into homecoming. There are those believing they've ventured too far, done too much, sinned beyond forgiveness's reach. They carry their past's burden like a chain, believing redemption is for others, but not themselves. But here's the truth. No transgression is so great, divine grace cannot cover it. No failure is so profound, divine love cannot reach it. Consider the prodigal son. He took his father's gifts and squandered them on reckless living. He found himself at his lowest point, broken, ashamed, unworthy. But when he decided to return, expecting only rejection, he found something else: mercy. His father ran to him, embraced him, and restored him. This illustrates redemption. It isn't merely forgiveness, it's restoration. It isn't just escaping judgment. It's being welcomed back with open arms. Some believe redemption means evading sin's consequences, but that's inaccurate. The scars may persist, earthly consequences may linger, but redemption transforms those scars into testimonies. What the enemy intended for harm, the divine turns for good. He takes broken pieces and creates something beautiful. He takes mistakes, regrets, failures, and weaves them into a narrative of grace. Many journey through life burdened by shame, believing their past disqualifies them from a hopeful future. But sacred texts overflow with stories of those who failed, fell, made terrible mistakes, yet through divine redemption were restored and used for glory. Moses was a murderer, yet divinely called to lead a nation. David was an adulterer, yet called a man after the divine heart. Rahab was a prostitute, yet became part of the sacred lineage. Peter denied the divine 3 times, yet became the foundation upon which the community was built. Paul persecuted believers, yet became one of the greatest messengers who ever lived. The divine doesn't call the perfect. He calls the broken and makes them whole. He doesn't consider where you've been. He considers where he can lead you. Redemption isn't about who you are. It's about who he is. Many attempt to rectify themselves before approaching the divine. They believe they must purify their lives first, break their own chains, heal their own wounds. But redemption doesn't function that way. It isn't something we achieve, it's something we receive. It isn't about making ourselves worthy. It's about accepting sacred worthiness on our behalf. Transgression separates, but redemption restores. Transgression binds, but redemption liberates. Transgression condemns, but redemption speaks a better word. It's the bridge between who we were and who we're meant to be. It's the open door through which we step from darkness into light. The power of redemption isn't merely about eternal salvation, it's about daily renewal. Each day we need divine grace. Each day we need divine mercy. Redemption isn't just for the lost, it's for the weary, the broken, the struggling. It's the continuous divine work in our lives, renewing us, transforming us, drawing us closer. No past is too broken for divine healing. No sin is too great for divine covering. No life is too lost for divine redemption. Redemption's power surpasses our failures, surpasses our regrets, surpasses anything attempting to keep us bound. It's the invitation to abandon past chains and walk forward in freedom. It's the declaration that regardless of your journey, the divine isn't finished with you. We inhabit a world of shifting foundations. Society's voices claim truth is relative, that today's right may be tomorrow's wrong, that we must bend and compromise to fit evolving culture. But truth isn't something bending with the wind. Truth doesn't change to accommodate human desires. Truth is eternal, unshakable, and unwavering. It isn't built on opinion or emotion, but on immutable divine words. Standing firm in truth means anchoring yourself in something immovable regardless of storm intensity. It means holding steadfastly to divine guidance even when the world urges release. It means choosing righteousness even when compromise appears easier. It means walking in light even amid surrounding darkness. Since time began, truth has faced attacks. In the garden, the enemy's initial tactic was deception. "Did the divine really say?" he whispered, planting doubt, twisting truth, leading humanity into transgression. That same whisper echoes through the ages. The enemy seeks to destroy, confuse, lead people from truth's foundation. He doesn't present obvious falsehoods, but subtle distortions, half-truths, wrapped in enticing words. The world claims truth is subjective, different for each person. But truth isn't determined by human opinion. If truth is subjective, it ceases being truth. A shifting foundation cannot support a house. A road changing direction with every traveler leads nowhere. A life built on uncertainty will collapse under pressure. But divine words remain constant. They don't shift with cultural tides. They don't fade with passing generations. They stand firm, unshaken, immovable. Standing firm in truth requires conviction. It's easy to stand without opposition, but genuine faith reveals itself facing challenges. When pressure to compromise arises, when surrounding voices mock your beliefs, when the world demands conformity, will you stand or will you bow? The Hebrew men in Babylon faced this test. They were commanded to bow before the king's golden image. The choice was clear: conform or face the flames. But they stood firm, declaring they would serve no other. They were cast into fire but weren't alone. The divine accompanied them and delivered them. Truth isn't always popular. It sets you apart, causes you to walk differently, live by different standards. But truth deserves defense, because without it, only confusion exists. Without it, there's no direction, no foundation, no security. The world may mock, reject, persecute those standing firm in truth, but eternity will reveal that truth was never questionable. The world changes, but the divine remains constant. His word endures, his promises continue. Compromise might seem easier, might appear to bring immediate peace, but compromise leads to erosion. A small foundation crack, if unaddressed, will expand until the entire structure collapses. Many have fallen not because they rejected truth outright, but because they permitted small compromises to weaken their position. They released conviction incrementally until finding themselves far from their intended location. Standing firm in truth requires knowing truth. You cannot stand on what you don't know. If you don't fill your heart and mind with divine words, worldly voices will shape your beliefs. If you don't anchor yourself in Scripture, opinion winds will carry you wherever they please. The enemy knows this, which is why he works to keep people from reading the Word, from meditating on it, from applying it. He knows that a believer grounded in truth cannot be easily deceived. Standing firm also requires courage. The world may call you intolerant, unloving, narrow-minded, but truth isn't hateful. Truth represents the most loving thing because it leads to life. A physician refusing to tell patients the truth about their condition doesn't love them. A teacher refusing to teach truth doesn't care for students. Love and truth aren't opposites. They're inseparable. History overflows with individuals who stood firm in truth even at great cost. Prophets spoke divine truth even when rulers sought their lives. Messengers preached good news even when beaten and imprisoned. The early community refused to bow even when it meant death. They could have compromised, could have chosen an easier path, but they knew truth surpassed comfort, surpassed approval, surpassed even life itself. Life's storms will come. Worldly pressures will intensify. Compromise voices will grow louder, but truth remains. It isn't shaken by opinion, swayed by culture, or dimmed by time. Standing firm in truth isn't always easy, but it's always right. It's the only foundation that endures. It's the only path that leads to life. It's the only hope for a world lost in confusion. Trials represent life's certainty. No one escapes hardship. No one traverses this world untouched by suffering. There will be painful seasons, uncertainty, difficulty so immense you may feel unable to continue. There will be moments when life's weight presses so heavily upon you that you wonder if you'll break beneath it. But in those very moments, perseverance emerges, not in trials' absence, but in their endurance. Perseverance exceeds merely surviving hardship. It surpasses enduring difficulty through gritted teeth. Perseverance means pressing forward with faith, standing firm facing adversity, refusing surrender when everything inside urges capitulation. It's the unwavering commitment to trust divine plans even without understanding. It's believing that even amid flames, the divine continues working. Even amid storms, he maintains control. Scripture clearly states trials will come. The divine himself said, "In this world you will have trouble." He didn't say we might face trouble. He didn't say only some would suffer. He declared trials would be universal reality. But he also said, "Take heart, I have overcome the world." Perseverance's promise isn't that we'll avoid trials, but that through divine power we'll endure them. Every trial has purpose. It may not be immediately visible, may not be easily understood, but the divine never wastes suffering. Life's trials refine faith, purify character, and deepen divine dependence. Gold undergoes fire testing. Diamonds form under pressure. Strength builds through resistance. The trials threatening to break you often become the very instruments the divine uses to build you. Joseph endured betrayal, false accusation, and imprisonment years before elevation to purposeful position. Job lost everything: wealth, family, health. Yet through suffering he encountered the divine uniquely. Paul endured beatings, shipwrecks, and imprisonment, yet declared, "I have learned the secret of contentment in every situation." These men didn't merely survive trials, they persevered through them, trusting the divine worked in ways beyond their current vision. An enemy wants trials to destroy you. He wants suffering to shake faith, instill doubt, convince you of divine abandonment. He wants you to believe hardship indicates divine indifference. But truth reveals the divine is closest in valleys. The enemy uses trials to break you, but the divine uses them to strengthen you. The enemy wants suffering to turn you from the divine, but perseverance will draw you closer. Consider an athlete training for competition. The process challenges, training hurts, muscles burn, lungs strain, exhaustion dominates. But without pain, no progress occurs. Without resistance, no growth happens. The runner doesn't quit because of discomfort. He advances because he knows endurance builds with every step. Perseverance doesn't develop in comfort, it forges in struggle. Faith doesn't remove trials, but sustains you through them. Perseverance isn't about never feeling weak. It's about pressing forward despite weakness. Days will come when strength seems depleted. Moments will arise when you question your endurance capacity. But in those moments, divine strength perfects itself in your weakness. You needn't persevere through your power. You needn't carry burdens alone. When trials come, choice appears before you. Will you allow suffering to separate you from the divine? Or will you permit it to draw you nearer? Will you become bitter or better? Will you collapse under the weight? Or will you press forward in faith? Perseverance doesn't mean pain vanishes, but it means pain doesn't speak the final word. The storm may rage, but you're not isolated. The fire may burn, but you won't be consumed. The journey may be long, but the destination justifies it. Continue forward. Keep advancing. Stand firm. Perseverance through trials isn't about escaping suffering. It's about traversing it with unwavering faith, knowing the divine works, knowing He leads. Victory isn't an uncertain hope for believers. It's a divine guarantee. It's not possibility, but promise. Battle may rage, enemy may surround, circumstances may appear overwhelming, but the final outcome remains unquestioned. The divine has already declared victory. It comes not through human strength, not through earthly power, but through the sovereign hand of the Almighty. Victory's promise doesn't mean battles won't come. It doesn't mean struggles, hardships, or painful moments won't exist. In fact, the victory path often traverses trial valleys, waiting seasons, storms testing every faith measure. But regardless of battle intensity, regardless of struggle duration, one truth remains unshaken. The war is already won. Since time began, a battle has existed between good and evil, between light and darkness, between truth and deception. The enemy has fought to steal, kill, destroy. He has attempted to weaken faith, plant doubt seeds, turn hearts from the divine, but he has never prevailed. Every time he's opposed divine plans, he's faced defeat. In the garden, he believed he'd won when transgression entered the world, but the divine had already initiated redemption plans. At the cross, he thought he'd conquered when divinity was crucified, but 3 days later, the grave emptied, and death itself fell. Believers' victory isn't found in human effort. It isn't achieved through willpower or determination. It isn't earned through strength or intelligence. It's found in divinity alone. He conquered transgression. He defeated death. He holds victory keys, freely giving that victory to those trusting him. The world may appear increasingly dark. Evil may seem to advance. Injustice, suffering, and turmoil may surround you. But appearances don't determine outcomes. Divine promises don't depend on visible evidence or comprehensible elements. Victory doesn't depend on earthly circumstances. It's secured in heavens, written in eternal word, sealed by divine authority, unchangeable and unstoppable. Victory doesn't indicate easy battles. Struggles will emerge. Moments will come when life's weight presses heavily upon you. Times will arise when fear whispers you won't succeed, when the enemy claims you've already lost. But victory's promise surpasses defeat's lie. The divine doesn't promise an easy path, but promises the battle belongs to him. Consider the Israelites before the Red Sea. Behind them, Pharaoh's army approached. Before them, an impassable sea stretched endlessly. Naturally, they were trapped. The enemy appeared stronger, the situation impossible. But the divine had already declared victory. He didn't instruct them to fight their way out, didn't tell them to find their own escape. He told them to stand firm and watch salvation unfold. Instantly, the sea parted, and apparent defeat became miraculous victory. The same divine who parted waters still fights for his people today. He remains unchanged, yesterday, today, forever. His power hasn't diminished. His authority hasn't faded. His promises haven't expired. He remains the divine who transforms impossible situations into triumph testimonies. Victory doesn't mean avoiding every battle. David still confronted Goliath. Daniel still entered the lion's den. Paul still endured imprisonment and persecution. But battle presence doesn't indicate victory absence. Through struggle, faith faces testing. Through fire, character refines. Through waiting, trust strengthens. And throughout all, the promise persists. Victory is certain for those standing in faith. The enemy will attempt alternative persuasion. He'll highlight your failures, weaknesses, past mistakes. He'll remind you of lost battles, seemingly unanswered prayers, unopened doors. But victory's promise doesn't rest on your past. It rests on divine power. It isn't determined by your actions, but secured by divine actions. When the divine said, "It is finished," on the cross, he wasn't declaring defeat. He was proclaiming victory. Sin's chains broke, death's grip shattered, enemy's power crushed. That victory isn't merely historical event, it's present reality for every believer. Days will come when victory feels distant. Moments will arise when battle seems endless. But feelings don't dictate truth. Victory's promise doesn't change based on emotions. It doesn't waver facing difficulty. It stands firm, unshaken, eternal. Victory's promise belongs to those who persevere, those continually advancing, those refusing surrender to fear. The journey may extend, the fight may intensify, but victory remains assured. The battle isn't yours to win, it's already won. All that remains is standing firm in faith, trusting that the divine who has never lost a battle won't start now. Through every conflict, every trial, every storm, one truth remains unshaken. The divine is faithful. Faith's journey isn't without struggles, doubt moments, hardship seasons, and times when life's burden feels unbearable will come. But in every challenge, every obstacle, divine hand remains steady, divine promises unchanging, divine strength perfecting itself in weakness. You've been called to acknowledge the battle, to recognize the struggles seeking your defeat. But you don't fight alone. A higher power works, a strength beyond human ability, a grace sustaining when endurance seems impossible. Faith anchors during storms, illuminates darkness, assures that regardless of circumstances, you're never abandoned. Victory's path requires standing firm in truth, refusing to yield to worldly pressures, holding steadfastly to divine word even when everything around you trembles. It demands perseverance through trials, advancing when the way becomes difficult, trusting that even amid suffering, the divine works. Redemption isn't merely possible, it's promised. No past is too broken, no sin too great, no failure too final. The divine restores, rebuilds, and renews, transforming every scar into a grace testimony. And ultimately, there is victory, not uncertain hope, but guaranteed triumph. Battles may rage, struggles may persist, but the outcome is already decided. The cross is spoken, the grave stands empty, the enemy is defeated. Victory's promise isn't just for eternity, it's for today. It's for the weary, the struggling, the broken, those feeling like surrendering. It reminds that regardless of fight intensity, regardless of opposition strength, divine power is greater. So stand firm, press on, walk in faith. The battle belongs to the divine, and in him you have already overcome.